Hello friends, welcome to Noclip, Crewcast. Is it a Crewcast? It's not, it's a podcast. There's no crew here, there's just myself and Raphael Colantonio from WolfEye Studios, who I have been spending a little bit of time with for the past couple of years. You may remember that here on this podcast feed, talked a bit about Weird West when that came out a number of years ago. That was the first game from WolfEye Studios. Raphael Colantonio, of course, one of the founders of Arkane Studios, and after leaving Arkane Austin, he founded WolfEye and made a sort of a new type of immersive sim has become, it's definitely not a genre, I feel like, anymore. It's sort of a descriptor, perhaps, because Weird West was definitely doing a lot of other really interesting stuff, procedural storytelling and whatnot. And I really liked that game. I liked how daring it was. I loved the format of the 5 different heroes and how the story bled in together. It was a super cool project. And then himself and Julien Robbie over at WolfEye reached out to me a number of months after that game's release to say that they were working on something else. They were working on something bigger, something first person, and sort of closer to a lot of the games that they'd made in the past over the years. And would Noclip be interested in recording some of that and then seeing what it might be used for in the future? So I was like, fucking yeah, absolutely. I think all the games that we covered that Raph and Julien have been involved in are games that I've found, if not that I loved them, that I definitely found them interesting from a design perspective. I think I've loved pretty much all of them as well. And we've obviously covered loads over the years with the History of Arkane Studios documentary we also put together on Noclip. But yeah, so I have been filming with these guys on and off for the past couple of years. We've been doing monthly check-ins. I was filming in Los Angeles with some of the team on one of their offsites. And I have been collating, I guess, development materials. I feel like I have been doing the smallest part of this job. The team over there and Julien himself have been doing an amazing job of sending me loads of videos and screenshots and concept art and design documents and meetings every month for the best, I feel like the best part of 2 years at this stage. I think it was summer 2023. I'm pretty sure it was the first time I was filming with them. So we decided finally to get together, myself and Raph at least, to talk about the project. This game does not have a name that is public yet. This game has lots of details about its design that are perhaps less public than others, maybe. I don't know. I am so embedded with the game that I don't really know what's out there. So we just shot the shit for an hour about everything that's been going on. I talked about what it's been like getting funding during these past couple of insane years when it came to publisher agreements and all that sort of stuff, about building the team up from what they had at Weird West, the types of people they work with, of course the closing of Arkane Austin and sort of how that's affected things or how it's affected Raph himself, and also just like, I guess, the moment we're having when it comes to first person RPGs, because that's kind of what it looks like they're building now is something, you know, that has a flavor of that ImSim goodness, but it is definitely leaning in the I have to be careful what I say here, but also has, you know, RPG elements, shall we say. And it's just been a crazy year, a crazy 6 months for that genre with, you know, Stalker 2 and Adamfall and Kingdom Come Deliverance, and God, even Oblivion gets re-released, Avowed, of course, and all these games seem to be very popular. So, you know, what how has that affected, if anything, the work that they're doing, and what does he think about that as well? So we talked about a bunch. I hope you enjoy it. It's very early in this game's development. Like I said, it doesn't have a name publicly yet or anything like that. But just to get together and talk about our project and talk about what it's been like working on it, myself and Raph thought we'd do it. So we hope you enjoy this interview. I want to give a massive shout out, of course, to all of our patrons over patreon.com/noclip that allow us to do things like, for instance, embed at a studio remotely in some respect over the course of several years before we make anything. We're still trying to figure out what we do. I think originally when we did this, we said we would produce probably a documentary about the game's development after it came out, like we normally do on Noclip. I don't think we're going to do a series. We're not doing a pre-release series on this one or anything like that. It was Raph, I think, is just a really open-hearted when it comes to games development and wants to capture as much of this stuff as possible. This stuff takes time and money and effort, and we wouldn't be able to do it without all of our incredible patrons. So thank you all so much, including our incredible Battle Pass holders: Lovepreet, Yut, Dwayne the Rock Lobster, Anthony Thomas, Nico Passateri, It's a Me, Ferrario, Penelope Hayes, Senator Armstrong, Harry Flanagan, Juice, Arno, Jose R., Matt Pearson, James Brown, Mark Rojas, Tucker Morgan, Goddison, David McGarry, Sven Huster, Pez, John Akers, Ewan Nate, Tim Robinson, Forrest Pruitt, Jonathan Kremen, Eric Hamilton Schneider, Christophe Fatui, Cameron Ladd, Zachary Snader, Alex Goucher, George Sokotis, Jacob Godserve, and Theogen, James Med, Tohir Tiliev, and Ryson. Thank you all so much for your incredible support of Noclip. Thank you for supporting projects like this. And without further ado, here's me chatting to Raphael Colantonio about insert video game name here in the future. Enjoy. Raphael Colantonio, thank you so much for joining us on the Noclip podcasts this week. We do talk relatively often, though. Usually not. Well, they are recorded as well, but usually not broadcast out into the world. First of all, how you doing? How's development been the past few weeks? How's life in Austin at the moment?
Well, I'm good. Thanks, Danny, for inviting. Busy with the new game, and also still having a good life here. It's things are fine.
Excellent. I'm very interested in what we can talk about today, because sort of how much information about this project is out in the public sphere is obviously less than what I'm aware of, because we've been following you guys for 2 years now, at least, I think. I'm trying to remember. When we started.
At least 2 years. Yeah, since we basically had the inception of an idea and very early documents. We did not have a publisher back then. It was it's been a ride.
Yeah. So what exactly what do people know? What's out there at the moment?
Yeah, people know that we are working on a game that is in the similar space of the type of games we've made before when we were part of Arkane. So Dishonored and Prey. So it's a first-person action RPG with a lot of simulation elements, and that's about it. I don't think we did reveal 3 screenshots,
right,
that show the world, right? So it's a retro sci-fi kind of world. And we know it's set in some sort of an alt 1900s, but that's about it. That's all that is being revealed.
And those screenshots, that was last year, right? That was like in the summertime maybe or something?
Yeah, that was a while ago. Yeah. That was probably summer last year. Yes, that's right. Yeah.
What was the initial impetus to get even that little bit of information out? Do you remember? Was it like just to nudge people in the direction? Because presumably after Weird West, they don't know what WolfEye is working on. They probably didn't expect something of this scale, I'm guessing. What was the initial?
I think, frankly, some of it was our own excitement to just let our fans know that we're on something that they were going to enjoy, like from us. I think there was Weird West was a way for us to assemble a smaller version of the crew, and it was fun. It was a little bit of an aside for us, like it's still working in the same kind of game, but smaller budget. supposedly easier to make, which was not. But really, we were itching to do first person, and we knew our fans were really wanted that from us. They wanted us to go back to the kind of games that they like us for, and so we wanted to let people that that's what we were onto, and also it was a way for us to rally a group of fans for the public alpha. That's something we wanted to start early, and also to create some buzz. We're also looking for publisher back then. We did
Right.
not have a publisher, so that was one more element that the publisher could see, was kind of validating that there was excitement from the public about our announcement. Even though I don't think without it they would not have signed us, but because we really had a very cool demo that is playable. So good team, good demo, good concept. I think that was that led to us landing this deal. So it's exciting.
Let's talk about that for a second, because obviously, and I know this is business stuff, so it's a little bit still in flux. Well, not in flux, but it's the game isn't out yet, so it's hard to get too much into the weeds on this stuff. I appreciate, but obviously you were looking for funding of some description in an era where people are really struggling to do so, sort of have been and continue to do so. And this is a bigger project as well than Weird West. The team is a bit bigger. So
Yeah, much bigger.
how was this sort of, how was that process? Well, I know how that process was, but how do you reflect on the past 2 years of trying to secure that funding in an era where it was pretty difficult?
Oh man, it's a pretty difficult era, as you said, and also as an aside, Arkane Austin was
Right.
was closed in the meantime. So it was pretty, that part was pretty depressing. And in general, the state of the finance of the industry is pretty bad. There's been some sort of a contraction of the market. I mean, the industry is suffering for 10 different reasons. It's not just one. And so it was, but we thought at some point, look, if we, and I think we spoke with you about that. We're kind of joking. We said, look, we have a great team. We really, really have a great team. People that are really that work together for anywhere between 10 to 30 years. The Christophe Carrier, we've been working together for 30 years. When we, before Arcs, before we even started Arkane.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So we really know each other. The team is so good together. And we've done things together. For the most part, 80% of the team is former Arkane people. So we have that. We have a great demo that is ready. People can play it. People can see what the game is. And we say, if we don't sign, if we don't find someone, then I wonder who will.
Right.
Because we have experience. We have a good demo in our hands, and we were fairly cheap from a budget standpoint, because we are funding part of the game ourselves. So it's a lot of conditions that right now to sign a deal, that's kind of like what you need. It's unfortunately it's so hard that you really need a good demo, a good team that is experienced, and also partially fund your game, basically.
Right. Just to spread the risk out a bit. Is that where that's coming from?
Yeah, I mean, you really want to give a compelling proposition to the publishers, right? That's the I guess that's the bottom line. And also, we're not following trends or anything. We are very passionate about the type of games that we do, and I think we found a publisher, Neowiz, that was very very welcoming of that mentality of a bunch of passionate developers that are following their direction, like what we've been doing before, and we There's other companies that have been doing the same and they've been successful at that. I mean, if you keep doing the same thing you always do, you get better at it, instead of following trends and trying to please the market or whatever. We're just trying to make the best games that we love to play ourselves, and we know we have an audience for that, and we're not going to betray them, and that's really the mindset. And NeoWiz was very welcoming of that mindset as well. You know, we so it was very it was a very natural alliance in a way. We thought, yeah, this is the right group for us. And
you mentioned a few times that this is, you know, it's something similar you guys are known for. You've worked on these types of games in the past. In what ways, though, do you think this project is different? Because I can certainly see it trying things that maybe were outside of the scope of some of those games, or, you know, and presumably as a creative person, you want to try new things as well and test yourself, you know?
Absolutely. I think the main difference, and it's more like of a deepening of what we've done before, in the sense of, so the mechanics, you can imagine, you know, somewhere between Prey and Dishonored. We've always been into this first person with a interesting player mobility, very physical, you know, the type of combat, the powers that are super versatile and open to some interesting combinations of stuff. You know, that's kind of what we do, and letting run the simulation, etc., etc. But something that if you think about the structure, though, we've never really done. We've done, in a way, contiguous worlds with Prey, because Dishonored was mission-based. Prey was contiguous. It was one space, right? But it was an enclosed space, like it was a space station. So now we did do that in a piece of land. It's not a huge open world, and even calling it open world is always tricky because it comes with some weird assumption, and you know, there's going to be a lot of grinding, and you walk for hours and collect mushrooms. That's not at all what we do. We do a very crafted, contained open world where everything is interesting. It's not, you know, there's no walking for hours somewhere, etc. But yet it is contiguous, and also the structure of the game is this time closer to an RPG. That's why we call it an action RPG, in the sense of, if you imagine, you know, we're big fans of Fallout, Obsidian games, Bethesda games, this kind of thing. Now, those games are, you know, they have dialogue, they have things to collect, they have different quests you can do in different orders, there's some branching. So really for us, it's an exploration a little bit in that direction. So that's why I think our game at the end lands somewhere between Prey, Dishonored, and Fallout. If we were to, you know, try to give it inspirations. And it's always tricky to name other games, because then sometimes as a gamer, you hear that and you might run with an idea that is not
Right.
exactly what we do, right? But I think if you can imagine that those games as a defining perimeter, that we're somewhere there, right? All that in a world that is interesting, with a story that has a lot of plot twists. I think there's going to be a lot of surprises in the story. People appreciated the mind-bending stuff we did with Prey. There's a bit of that again. Different though. You know, don't expect this. You know, we're gonna redo the same story, but it's that kind of effect that it had on players that I really like. We're gonna play with. Yeah, I think that's all more or less what. And those information are more or less already on the public. I mean, maybe I gave a little more than usual. I'm not sure, but that's kind of like
Hard to
where
keep
we
track.
can leave it at
Yeah, the RPG stuff is definitely super exciting, I think. And you've had, I know, over the course of the project, some pretty, you know, you've plugged in some consultants, some talented people who are really good in that space. I bet you're excited to finally talk about some of those people as
Yes.
well. Yeah.
Yes, yes, of course. At some point, you know, we love to work with people that we are fans of. it's something that I've done my entire gaming career, really. And so on this round, we have Chris Avalone that is part of the team in a capacity of consultant. So he works a few days a week for us, and it's just such a great experience in RPG which really helps. We also had Tim Kane. Right now is back at Obsidian, but such a great guy, such a source of wisdom and knowledge in RPGs, and specifically in the type of games that I love. I was a huge fan of Fallout, and his type of mind is project oriented. He is of course game design oriented, very very game design, and also he loves stories. So, and he has got a great sensitivity to those type of games, and he knows what makes them great in general. So that was also a great help. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if I think of us going more RPG, it's really giving more dimensions to the kind of game that we've always done. It's more tools. It's more tools. Giving the possibility to the players to have dialogue choices, for example, based on some skills or whatever, is more possibilities that we give to the players. So it goes very very well in the philosophy of things that we've already done. Usually we do them more on an action physical level, and this time not only we also do it on the action physical level, but we're also adding some other layers of interaction of choices that are more RPG like.
We talked about this as well privately, and I know you're in the middle of development, so it's hard for you to go out and start playing a bunch of these games. But there's been this sort of, you talked about how it's hard to explain what a game is using other games as sort of touch points, that you can sort of craft an idea of a game in someone's head. And there's been a few games like this, like Atomfall that came out a couple of weeks ago, which is a similar game where like you kind of want to say it's a bit Fallouty, but more so in, I guess, place and tone than gameplay, and it's kind of an immersive sim, but it's kind of just like an open world first person shooter like Far Cry or something, but not really. And we've had this sort of like little renaissance of first person RPGs, because like Stalker, Avowed, obviously Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, and they all seem to be doing really well and sort of bucking against that whole idea that people don't want to play first person RPG. I mean, Oblivion came out last week and it sold like
it's killing it.
a million copies or something more, probably. Is that like a boon to you guys when you see that stuff happening? Like, or is it a little bit frustrating where you're like, this should have happened a year ago because getting publisher money would have been so much easier?
Yeah, it's a bit of both. I think it's a bit of both. The truth is there are some RPGs, etc. They've always been hard to sell. There's always this outlier. The Bethesda games have done always incredibly well, but at the same time, so many RPGs have not done well that the publishers and the market are always. I don't think there's a specific rules. It's not like RPGs are going to sell, right?
Right.
It's and RPGs are hard to make. If you make them an immersive sim, harder as well. So if you're going to make them, it's because you love it. It's not because you're chasing the market. It's not because you're chasing money. And that alone, for me, as an advocate for the right reasons to make video games in this world where there's so much, none of that, it's for me is compelling already. So if there's an RPG that comes out, I'm always a little excited. So yeah, to answer your question, it is great. I think it's validating. I think it's market is constantly evolving. I think players are fatigued if you give them always the same things, and for some reason, RPGs and immersive sims, etc. They're a rare. They exist. They're always there. Sometimes they work. Sometimes they don't. right now we have a few examples of some that do work, and so that's great. That's encouraging. I hope that when we release ours, we are equally in a good position, and the stars align for us to to also hit it.
From like a design and development standpoint, sort of away from the business and running the company, what's been the most challenging part of this project? Like, you've a lot of experience in a lot of areas of this style of game development, but what was the part that sort of you hung up on a little bit this time around?
From the development standpoint, so far, I mean, it's been. I think from a development standpoint, it's been pretty smooth. And now, if we go into detail, there are some characters and some monsters and some stuff that we are working on, which are really, really giving us problems. But I've seen that before. It was the same when we were working on Dishonored or on Prey. There's always that thing that you have to do 10 times in order to even know what it is. And because sometimes we have a little bit of abstract concepts. I can think of, in Prey, there was the Apex, who was that really big monster in Prey that was so abstract, it was hard to put to come together. So there are things like that. There are some gadgets that we're trying to make that are extremely challenging because of the nature of what we want them to do. But there's no big challenge as far as like the fundamental structure, the performance, or anything. We're not trying to do anything that we don't know how to do, like some crazy procedural stuff or whatever. In fact, we're kind of like, we keep the procedural pretty low. I mean, it's mostly handcrafted with a lot of authoring and relying on simulation. So there is procedural in that sense, and then there's some procedural stuff that we are bringing from Weird West. But the good part, like some consequences when a character is mad at you for some reason, then there might be a vendetta or whatever. So these kind of things, which is dynamic and happens at different places. But that's the extent of us for the procedural. So it's very controlled. There's nothing other than game content where we are really struggling. I mean, frankly, we struggle with the story because we have a pretty interesting plot that opens to a lot of possibilities and including twists, and we can go deeper. And there's some questions in there that we really like, how it can create some mind twists. But that has been a challenge. We kept on coming back to, okay, hold on, like, no, that doesn't make sense because of this, and then we would change stuff, etc. And every time you change stuff like that, there's the consequences on a lot of things, including the nature of your enemies and where they come from and what they can do, etc. So it's more on the game design. It's more on the game design, on the theory and the story, and some of the content that we are struggling. Not so much on the tech.
Yeah, it's
fun. Tech we're using.
Yeah, it was funny watching you watching the story evolve over, especially the first year, where it seemed like every time we did like a check-in meeting, it was like, okay, no, now they're this and this is this and this is this, and and like you said, it seems like just an aspect of making anything creative is you got to play around with it. Like you said, make it 10 times before it sort of clicks together. Is that fun, or is that a scary experience, or is it fun at the start and then less fun the longer it goes on?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both. I think we never like to do that. We never intend to redo something 10 times, obviously. We've made game for so many years, and we think now we understand better, and we think that every time we say, okay, next time let's make sure we don't do things 10 times. Like, let's get it right from the first time. But that's a little bit naive to think that you can do things right the first time. So we always beat ourselves up for not getting it right the first time. But I think we're not the only ones to do that this way. It's very iterative. It's a lot of trial and error. It's a lot of catching happy accidents. And sometimes the happy accidents come from a bad idea that was there and that you don't know what to do with it, and then you're about to kill it, and then it gives you this other idea. Oh my God, it's all work now because of that bad idea, you know. So development is I love it. I love that process. It's stressful. I hate it and I love it at the same time. And I think it's true for most of our team. It's definitely not a development style on the rail. So I think some developers would be turned off or freaked out by our development style, but that's the only one we know.
I presume as well it comes a lot from working with these same people and having that trust and having gone through that process a few times. You sort of
Yes,
inherently trust it.
that's true. Yeah, we know that eventually it will work, but it's stressful, and we all have our different degrees of tolerance for those redos, you know. And also, frankly, of course, the consequences of me having a new idea are not the same on the level design, you know, because the new idea, I basically have to just look at all the docs and talk to different people, and that's it. But then the people who did the work, now they have to redo part of the work. So I understand it's stressful, and again, it's never my intention to do things just to redo them. Sometimes it's unfortunate, but sometimes you need to have enough of the thing to be able to see what's wrong with it. And I'm sure a lot of developers will agree with that. But you know, there's always this theory, like if only we could get it right from the get go, like a drawing in one perfect
Line.
trajectory, and it's like everything is in there. Like you never had to to cancel anything or.
Yeah, then you wouldn't come up with the best drawing. Probably you'd come up with the easiest drawing, maybe. You know.
Yeah, very possible. Yeah, very possible.
So Weird West, I absolutely loved it. It was the studio's first game. It was your first game outside of Arkane, and as an independent studio again, and all that stuff. What did you sort of learn from that? Like, what did that experience teach you that you can use on this new game? Because as you said, you went for a different genre, which was probably or a different perspective, I guess is probably a better way of putting it. Actually, it was very similar to a lot of your previous games in many ways. But yeah, what did you learn? I'm guessing remote work was probably health. That was probably an aspect of it, or was there anything design on the design side that you're bringing into this one?
Yeah, I think in terms of you always learn from things. So there was a lot of learning, of course, with Weird West. There was also a lot of learning of where we don't want to go so hard. I think Weird West eventually the game was, I'm proud of the game, but it suffered from a lot of us trying to crack the nut of the procedural, which is a very, very hard nut to crack. And it might be a useless nut to crack also, because we're trying to do the thing where you create stories kind of dynamically with goals that are dynamic, etc. And we've never managed to make those in ways that was as compelling as when you pre-authored them. And so halfway into the game, into the development of the game, we had to do a U-turn and do the game in a more classic way, more like how we know how to make games, and drop the mastermind AI behind that was going to create content for the player. It's a beautiful idea from a theory, but then in practice it was complicated, and we did not. It made the concept muddy, and we did not exactly know where we were going. So at some point, what it means is that the game could have been even better if we had not spent at least a year too much on on the wrong thing. So that's one lesson. We thought, okay, well, we go back to what we know how to do this time, but we take a little bit of the procedural, like some of the stuff that actually worked, because there were some stuff that worked. And I was talking about earlier, like the consequences of the vendetta type of things, when some character shows up in the middle of the woods with a bunch of people with them and attack you. That's always really cool. But it's very controlled, and even though it can happen at different places for different players and not for with every characters, etc., it's still something that happens on the surface. It's not something that inherently breaks your games. So it's about that. It's about sprinkling a little bit procedural on top of what we know how to do, like the pre-authored, which is always more emotionally connected anyway at this stage. So that's some of the learning. The remote working, yes, it was definitely there was because it was entirely remote. So and we started before the COVID
Yeah.
happened. So we were already in that space before a lot of people.
It's just a byproduct of hiring a lot of French people, I guess. Is there in
Yeah, it
France
was
or spread out across the world in Julian's case?
exactly. Yeah, Australia for Julian, and yeah, a lot of people in France as well. Yeah, but I feel super lucky to work with people that I really really love working with, and that I love. Period. We've had such an adventure. It's as I said, it's people that I've known for decades for the most part, and then the new ones, they're really good too. They also come to us for that very specific reason of
Right.
working on that games that they like. So that alone is amazing. You work in a team that knows what they're doing and why they're doing it, and that's what motivates everybody. That's this kind of games. And it seems like from a distance, oh yeah, that's every game is like, it should always be like that, and it should. And I wish every game was like that. But having been in the industry for a while, I can tell you it's not always true. There's it's rare that you make uncompromised games where the game is really a byproduct of everybody wanting to make this game, and including the money people.
Right. The closure of Arkane Austin obviously happened sort of. I wouldn't say it's bad. It was bad timing for you, but you'd sort of already established the vast majority of your team, and you were sort of in a deeper part of development by the time that happened. I know that there's been some folks that have come on from there. But sort of outside of that, what's your impression just living in Austin and obviously knowing so many people who worked there right up until the end? What's your impression of where those people are ending up? Like, are some of them doing remote work out of Austin? Are people leaving the city? Are they starting their own things? What impression are you getting?
Yeah, there's a bit of everything. There's some of them joined us. Some of them are working remotely for a company that I don't know if I'm supposed to talk
Okay,
about. So,
fair.
but it's a place where they feel familiar. And some of them are trying to do their own studio. So it's a bit of all of that. Yeah.
Obviously, you founder of Arkane, and you worked with that team a lot. You moved over here. How did you feel when all that happened? Was it a shock to you? Because it was a massive shock, I think, to people who were
Of course.
unconnected. Yeah.
Yeah, it was super hard to see that happen. It was and even personally, I mean, not only I was feeling for my friends, but it's something that I helped putting together for years of my life, and I was even though I was not working on it anymore, I was proud of the achievement. I was like, I wanted the name to keep going. I mean, it's also in a way. It's like saying it's like a kid is a bit of an exaggeration, but a little bit,
Yeah.
it's a bit of my thing that I left behind, and now he's doing his own thing. So there's something beautiful about it, and with friends as well that were still there. So yeah, it massively sucked, and I not still to this day I don't fully understand. I don't fully understand what happened, and I've tried to talk to some of the people that were very close to the closure. So people who understand, who would understand, and nobody truly fully gets it.
Right.
And when you have such a team and people are misled, I mean, those were really, that was a really good team. There was a lot of good people in there. and they were planning on making a game after that, and I kind of kind of had an idea what they were doing, and it was it's such a strange thing. Because creating such a team, assembling such a team from scratch is extremely expensive, and it's relying on not just money, on a ton of things, on time, luck. So yeah, it was just I've said it before. I think it was a bad move, and I stand by it. It's a bad move. It was a bad idea.
Yeah, I was shook by when we visited there years ago now at this stage for our Bethesda stuff, and you had gone by that stage as well for the Arkane documentaries we worked on. I was struck by just the institutional knowledge that was there. Like everyone there seemed to have worked in this very particular craft. There was like artisans, where you're like, oh, you've made this one type of bowl your whole life. You're like really good at making these, and like everyone was connected, and a lot of studios jump around a bit more from like project to project or genre to genre, especially like work for hire ones. But because these people had been sort of like working in this very particular space for a long time, it reminded me of other studios where that's the case. Like IO Interactive reminds me of that. Machine Games reminds me of that, where you're like, oh, there's fewer of you here because you're better at what you do. It's like it's like the dream setup. So yeah, to then sort of be cut seemed like a bad decision, like you said, like the cost of setting that up and what they can possibly make is so much higher, and people are throwing money at new studios or have been for years, or acquiring them. In the case of Microsoft, it seemed like just shooting yourself in the foot to do that.
Absolutely, yeah. I'd love to someday have the luxury or the luck to meet the people who were behind this decision, and ask exactly and understand. It might just be a spreadsheet decision,
right? That's the depressing reality, is that it might just be that. What have you been playing yourself? Do you get to play anything? So many developers during development of their own games just can't seem to do it. But
yeah, I try. It's hard. Thankfully, I have my lead system designer, Gaël. Gaël Giraudot is such a gamer. He has his own YouTube channel where he reviews games, etc. So terrific. He plays all the time. And that's great, because of course, we want to make sure that our game and mechanics are somewhat presented in a modern way. So it's important that people are in touch with every game that comes out, and he's that guy. For my part, I played Stalker 2. That's probably the game that I spend the most time outside of my own game. And I bought Indiana Jones. I was really excited about it. I tried to run it. It crashed.
Oh, no.
And then I fiddled a little bit with my system. I could not understand where it came from, and I just got a refund, and I moved on. But I really want
I'm mostly surprised that out of the two of those games, the game that crashed on you was Indiana Jones. Because Stalker 2 for my machine was like, oof. I was like, I need to upgrade my graphics card, man. This game really wants it.
Yeah, for sure. Stalker 2 was a little demanding on the hardware, but it did not. Yeah, I could play at least, even if it crashed a couple of times, it was not like unbearable. Whereas, Indiana Jones, I just could not run it, and I tried a lot, enough, and then I said, okay, no. Other than that, no, I think. And I think the last big game I tried was it was probably just Starfield.
Right. Yeah.
Well, no, this was Baldur's Gate 3 before, after Starfield. I
think it was after, wasn't it?
After, so yeah, Baldur's Gate 3. I spent. I almost finished it. The last chapter was too big, so I had to.
I've heard that from. I feel like 50% of the people who played Baldur's Gate 3 were like, "Oh yeah, I had a great time," and then I got to chapter 3, and I realized I hadn't talked to my children in a year and stopped. So yeah, they came out a month apart from each other. Starfield's just before it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm waiting for The new Elder Scroll, that's something that I'm waiting for.
Hey man, Oblivion came out last week. Just get back in.
I know.
Were you a big Oblivion? I mean, Arx Fatalis. You like dungeon crawling,
I do. I'll tell you.
What's your favorite Elder Scroll? There's the answer. There's the question.
I'm going to be disappointing. It is Skyrim.
Okay, nice.
It is Skyrim. I know that the real fans will say Daggerfall or something.
I think that's a moving target. I think the cool one now is Morrowind, I think.
Yeah, you're right. The cool one is Morrowind. I think to me, Bethesda games were always interesting, but I never got into them until Skyrim. And the reason is there's a continuum from large, samey, with a million systems, none of them are really deep, and then the opposite of that, right? And I think for me, Daggerfall, where it was boasting to be 10 times the size of England or something like that, or maybe more, where you would meet multiple times the same character. You go into a dungeon, you get stuck because it was procedurally generated and there was no way out. And so it was so demanding on the player to even enjoy himself. But some players loved that. The feeling of this infinite size for a world where anything could happen. And so that was not my thing. I mean, I was interested in it. I was like, oh yeah, cool, I'll try. But I came from Ultima Underworld.
Right.
Which was on the other side of that continuum I'm talking about, like very, very story driven. There was a clear beginning and an end and a few puzzles, etc. And so it was more polished in general. And so for me, there was that. And I tried Morrowind. I had a bit of a similar experience, but it was a little more put together. Like it was a little less all over the place. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. But still not quite. And then Oblivion, that was very close. But there were things that in Oblivion were not too my thing. I think back then we were working on Dark Messiah. So
okay, right.
they were like, shit, they're gonna crap our sales, which they did. And then Skyrim was the one. Skyrim was really the one that for me had the right amount of it was rightly placed on that continuum I'm talking about. It was crafted, but at the same time large and felt like a real world and polished enough, etc. I was not getting lost into some weird dungeon that did not make sense. So for me, that's really when I started to be a huge fan of Bethesda.
I feel like somebody needs to mod Dark Messiah's like combat and AI into Oblivion. Like give us those frost spells on ramps. I don't do any of the spell casting at all in Oblivion. I've never really cared for it. It seemed very binary, but in Dark Messiah it was all about it. So gotta make that happen.
And some of it is the result of do you want 100 spells or do you want 10?
Right. Yeah.
So that's what I meant by that continuum. And I think in Skyrim they started to. I mean, I don't know how many spells they have, but it felt like it was manageable. That's how they managed to do something that was in the soft spot for the kind of game that I like.
And it's funny because like that probably, I don't know, I'm not a game developer, but to me that seemed like less, maybe it was a conscious choice, but also just like a byproduct of making 3D worlds. Like you could in Daggerfall, you could get away with, I think it used to take like, you could walk from town to town, but it would take an hour, and you just pass the same tree like 100,000 times or something. Whereas like you couldn't do that anymore. You had to games had to look real and 1080p or whatever on 360. So shit, we can't have 10 million spells anymore.
Yeah, for sure. Technology always somewhat influence game design. Yeah, that's for sure.
How have you felt finding the balance of creating a world in your new game that is, like you said, continuous, but not sprawling in a way that Every time your map gets bigger, you're like looking at Daggerfall, going, "Oh no, yeah, not like you."
I think it's a little in our DNA, in a sense of we always have the same rules that whenever you see something, you need to be able to access to it. If you are in a town, every building is real. So if you cannot access a building, you have to have a real reason, like it's been condemned because it's now destroyed and there's the plague, like in Dishonored, for example. And it's need to be clear. We don't really want to cheat the player, so that kind of forces us to do things that are pretty small. Because if you were to visit every apartment, every house in a game like GTA, you would go nuts. So we don't do that. We don't do the GTA thing. But at the same time, we're more like doing villages and things that, and even sometimes we have something that looks like a big town. But if you were to really count the buildings, you would realize that okay, there's not that many buildings, so it's actually manageable it's not overwhelming from a player. And so it's a matter of it's finding that right balance between a large world to explore, a world that feels large to explore, but at the same time not boring, where everything is handcrafted, so it feels like everything has a reason to be. There's no copy and paste, etc., etc., and that naturally kind of takes you somewhere in terms of production and what you can do. And I think we have that. We have that balance. We did reduce the world a few times, and then we increased it again. Because unlike a mission-based game where you work one mission at a time, here we are working on the entire world at the same time.
Right.
So that's the container, in other words, and you want to make sure the container is at the right size, because then you can't reduce it or grow it later. I mean, it becomes harder. I mean, you can, but it's very costly. And so there's a sense of, is this the right scale? Like I'm here from this mountain and I'm looking over there at this village. Does it feel right? Or it feels like it's just 3 steps away and it doesn't make sense, because players are going to feel it. So there's been a lot of that kind of thing happening. But I would say I'm not the only one. I think in the team we're excited with where we are right now with all of that, all those considerations.
One of the things that I found really exciting at the start of the project was diving into all the concept art and ideation and stuff that you guys, and obviously Manu Petit is you're working with again, and some fantastic artists who've worked on your previous games. It felt like going through like an art book that hadn't been made yet or something. It was pretty awesome. I think whenever people see screenshots of this thing and sort of the direction and style, it gets them excited. What are your guys' plans for the next big beat, I guess, PR wise? Like, are you guys sort of head down developing for the moment, or because the stuff that we're recording, we're obviously holding on to until close to launch. I don't know. We're still sort of figuring it out between us, like whether or not this comes out before or comes out after or whatever. But yeah, what are you thinking of for the rest of the year? Do you have any beats coming up, or are you guys head down working on development at the moment?
From a marketing standpoint, so right now we're working on the teaser to announce the game, and the difficulty is, I mean, it's totally marketing related, obviously, because it's all communication about how do we talk about this world? How do we present it in a way that is compelling without spoiling everything? Because some of it, there's some sort of plot twists in there that we don't want to reveal. And also that is not misleading in terms of like what setting it is, etc. So that's where we're on right now, and we don't know yet when it's going to be released exactly. So we're looking for a good opportunity, like some big event or something, to release that teaser. And yeah, that's about it. I think marketing wise this year, that's about it. We are going to have part of the public alpha being accessible to some of our the people who subscribe to it.
So sign up today.
Yeah. It's just who signed up, not subscribed. Otherwise, it sounds like they're going to pay monthly something.
WolfEye Prime, your access to
WolfEye Prime, the old season pass,
exactly.
Whatever. So yeah, and that's going to be cool because it's going to be our first feedback from the outside world. So that's we're excited about that, scared about that too. And then working with you on this thing. I'm super grateful, by the way, that you accepted to do that. It's
of course we could.
Julien and I are very excited about this entire process because even us forget over time how many back and forth and changes and struggles and how different is the game from the beginning to the end when it releases. So I think it's going to be an interesting story for people to see actually the reality of developing a game, because it's always glamorized. You know that most of the making of are done after, right? You see that in the movies as well. That suddenly they take the wireframe of the hero and it looks cool and say, yeah, that's how we did it. And but they all do that after. When actually you do it as it's happening, it can be pretty interesting and messy.
Yeah, big time. Yeah, no, we were very excited to jump in, and Julian's been doing incredible work. Sending us assets, and you guys have been doing. We filmed a bunch with you guys, and we're going to film again relatively soon as well. So, over the past few years, that's been cool checking in on you guys. But also, you've done an amazing job of collecting all of this stuff, which is the thing we when studios ask us about preserving their history, that's like the thing we always say is like just record your meetings, stick all those Slack videos in a little folder somewhere. Like it'll be gold dust someday, and you can figure out context later. Like don't worry about it. Just save it now. It'll take 2 seconds, and then once you've done that for a while, you get used to that muscle. And you guys have been incredible about sending us stuff. And I think maybe in a way, I wonder if the remote aspect of this has helped, because a lot of the stuff that's getting packaged up from the different teams, like whenever you guys do your get-togethers in person, it's a lot of. Here's the level design team talking about where they are. Here's art talking about where they are. Here's, gameplay programmers saying like, oh, here's a system that we're developing that the rest of the team has to be considerate of. So just because of that, in a way, it's been easier, I think,
you're right. It's material that we make anyway. Yeah, right. It's true. Mm-hmm. And we were talking something earlier. You're talking about the drawings that did not make it into the game. I still love those, by the way. They were fantastic. Some of these things don't make it into the game because they don't make sense from a story standpoint anywhere. But we should put them in the art book at the end. I think even the ones that did not make it, because there are some really cool stuff from Cedric and Fred.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, terrific work. All right, let's wrap it up there. What's the next couple of months look like for you then? What aspect of the game are you working on, or is it at this stage are you sort of like the conductor and sort of helping everyone else get to where they are?
There is still some. The story is pretty much done, but there's still like some detail that we are kind of thinking of in terms of the high level stuff and the lore, etc. So that's still happening in the background, but that's kind of not as present and urgent as working on the alpha for the public alpha. So this is what we're doing at the moment. We're starting to lock the content and doing some testing and debugging and etc. So to get that right and preparing the questions that we have for our players and
right.
So that's really the next effort.
Excellent. Well, Godspeed. We'll talk again soon, off air. But for the moment, Raphael Colantonio, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you, Danny.